have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Hum, dressed up as a log cabin Republican for Halloween.
I'm Ann Northrup. What am I dressed as? I don't know.
Happy Halloween.
Thanks. You too.
It used to be a big gay holiday, as I remember.
I think it's getting bigger and bigger.
No.
It's only us who have decided to ignore it.
Yes,
but
well,
let's move on to the news.
Well, the real horrors are in the world. In the headlines this week, a wealthy gay donor wants states that have LGBT rights bills to drop protections for public accommodations from their bills. And, but the major LGBT organizations are saying no.
Yeah. Well, it's complex. We'll try to give you the ins and outs of that. There is a big push on in the United States Senate to take a discriminatory anti-LGBT amendment out of the National Defense Authorization Act.
We are going to look at how LGBT issues came up in the last presidential debate, which was about a year ago, and how they are being used in competing political ads by the Clinton and Trump campaigns.
Soon this will be over, and then we'll have the aftermath. The log cabin Republicans have dumped Trump, but they're still pushing for a Republican Congress.
The state of Utah is being sued over its ban on discussing LGBT issues in schools.
Local story here in New York, a gay man who lost his partner of 50 years may now lose his home over a missing signature on his partner's will.
That's all it takes sometimes.
Yep.
Write a will. Police in Bangladesh have arrested a suspect in the murder of the country's leading gay activist.
In the United Kingdom, a debate has arisen over the value of a pardon or an apology to men convicted under the anti-buggery laws.
Yeah. We're going to have more on the increase in sexually transmitted infections in the United States and the role of PrEP in the spike.
And a few other reasons there. And we'll review some of the films from New York's LGBT Film Festival, New Fest, that may be coming to you, perhaps in a film festival in your town.
So we start off in the States.
Hey.
There are still a lot of states in this country that don't have LGBT rights laws. And many
more
of them
than half of them.
More than half the population is covered by the laws, but a lot of the states still don't have it.
Yeah.
States like Pennsylvania, for instance,
Yeah.
and among them. And
well, the gold standard of these laws, the conventional way to write them is no discrimination in housing, employment, and public accommodations.
Well, I shouldn't even say that. Well, the way they actually work is you take an existing human rights law, whatever they cover in the human rights law, and you add the categories of sexual orientation and gender identity and expression.
But generally, these laws cover
Yes.
housing, employment, and public accommodations.
Many of them cover other things, but yes, that's the way they work. But the point is, we want the same rights everybody else has in the human rights law.
We do.
With no exceptions.
Yep.
And that's the deal. We don't want gender identity taken out. We don't want any categories taken out. I mean, look, on the federal level,
Yes.
we did work for an employment bill for a long time and then realized that was silly. If we're going to pass something, let's pass something that covers everything.
Well, we also had a big fight at the federal level over whether we were going to include gender identity in that bill. And there was a time when everybody said, oh, let's just start with lesbian, gay, bisexual, sexual orientation. We will not fight for gender identity. And in fact, in the states over the last few years, there have been some bills that are comprehensive, some that cover only sexual orientation, and that's been a discussion.
Yes.
But now we're at the point where we have written the Federal Equality Act that we hope to get passed in a Democratic administration with some Republican help. That would fix a lot of laws.
Across the country.
And for women as well as LGBT, and cover a lot of categories and be really comprehensive. And we're still trying at the state level to pass comprehensive laws that cover sexual orientation and gender identity in housing, employment, and public accommodations.
So, Tim Gill is a big gay donor. He runs a foundation, and he runs something called the Gill Action Fund. And he gives a lot of money to these efforts in the states to do this. And he has decided, for the rest of us, no, if you're having trouble passing your bill, we don't want a big fight about bathrooms and public accommodations and whether somebody has to bake a cake for you for your wedding or anything like that. So let's take public accommodations out, and you'll get employment protections and you'll get housing protections. And the ACLU in Pennsylvania in particular said, absolutely not. We can't retreat from what we are asking for at the federal level, or we're undermining that effort. So they're saying no to this.
Well, and so is Lambda Legal Defense, and so is the Human Rights Campaign, and other organizations are standing up and saying, no, this is the wrong interpretation. We must press for the gold standard. We have made a lot of progress. And this is a terrible time to be saying this, because we are on the verge of a Supreme Court decision on these bathroom bills. We're on the verge of a new Democratic administration and a new, more Democratic Congress. It's crazy to be stepping back on this. On the other hand, the Gill Foundation, with the collaboration of Freedom for All Americans, which is the new rights lobbying organization, and the National Center for Transgender Equality, are saying, look, we don't want to wait for everything. Let's get what we can. Let's do this incrementally. We're facing a lot of backlash. Let's make progress where we can and then add on, as some states have done over the last few years.
It's a big mistake, I think. To go that route, you undermine yourself in the long run. After all, you can say you're protected in your job, but you can't go to the bathroom.
Exactly. But let me be a little more open-minded about this. I think it's a debatable choice to go incrementally or go for the whole thing. We had the same debates over marriage. Do you go for civil unions as a step toward marriage, or do you hold out for marriage? It's a continual debate over many issues. You can debate incrementalism before the whole thing, but the one thing I will say is I really think the timing is terrible for this kind of announcement.
Right.
And the Gill Foundation is now punishing those who don't agree with it. It has withdrawn funding from the ACLU LGBT Rights Project.
Well, the ACLU Lesbian and Gay Rights Project, LGBT Rights Project, was able to stop this in Pennsylvania from going forward, because they said we don't just object to this. We are opposing the bill as written without the category of public accommodations.
And taking out public accommodations, this has been a fight recently in the states about, do you include gender identity? If you take out public accommodations, that's everybody. Yeah. That means we give up on the bakery fights and the photographer fights.
Or just being able to eat out at a restaurant.
Exactly.
Or anything.
It gives a green light to any business owner being able to say, I don't want to do business with any of the LGBT initials.
And certainly in these big court cases that we're fighting for protection across the board in using the category of sex in the civil rights laws to protect us on the basis of certainly gender identity and expression, but also sexual orientation.
And the ACLU LGBT Rights Project points out that the progress we have made on that, on interpreting the laws against sex discrimination to include gender identity and sexual orientation, are laws that apply to housing and employment. And it is public accommodations where we need the protection to be pushed.
Well, I hope rather than this top-down approach, and I really object to people with big money coming in and saying, this is the way you're going to do it, we figured it out, you're going to do it this way, and we're not going to give you any money if you don't. I think it's time for people in these states to get together, coalesce, have a meeting, discuss what you want as across the board.
Well, that's what happened with marriage a lot. And there was that moment when in the big organizations, the LGBT organizations, did not want to challenge Proposition 8 in California. And the less experienced crowd went ahead and did it.
Right.
David Boyce and the Republican lawyer.
Yes, it'll come to us.
Yes, it will. We're old. Went ahead and sued and won. So absolutely, it's the grassroots efforts that win anyway. That is how we got marriage. The grassroots demanded it, and then the big organizations got on board.
Right.
But it's an ugly little fight. It's an ugly big fight.
Ted Olson.
Thank you.
Olson and Boyce.
Yes.
that
Dustin Lance
was-
Black. More about him later. He comes up later in the news.
So, people should be speaking up from the grassroots is
Yeah.
what we really need to have happen in these situations. And by the way, people from the grassroots, that's how you get this legislation passed, is that you organize in your neighborhoods and your communities and your towns and you get your representatives, find out who your representatives are at the state level and lobby them. And a lot of this is going to be on the ballot essentially in November, who you're going to be voting for at the local level
Yes.
in your state legislative elections.
Yep.
It's a little late to be raising these issues, but that's what changes things.
Look, it all feels late, but I'm happy to see that, in fact, people, the Democratic Party is starting to talk about state legislatures and local representatives and all of that. Anyway, well, not so grassroots. In the United States Congress, they are in the process of passing the National Defense Authorization Act. We've talked to you a little about this before.
When people want to do something good or nasty, they like to attach it to the National Defense Authorization Act because you got to pass the military bill so we can still keep fighting.
So the Senate passed if you like any of this, a perfectly reasonable version of the bill, but in the House, they attached at the last minute at night with no hearings an amendment to...
Well, it would allow federal contractors to discriminate against workers on the basis of sexual or gender orientation.
On the grounds of religious liberty, a
Yes.
religious objection. So this is an attempt to wipe out all the Obama executive orders that set out rules that federal contractors, businesses doing business with the federal government, must not discriminate on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity.
So 42 senators have signed something saying don't do this, and
Well,
they're
we
trying to
thought-
get John McCain on board because he has voted with us in the past on occasion.
Yeah, I'm worried about that. But they try, so the House, at first we thought we could negotiate this out in the House, and they slipped this amendment in at the last minute with no hearings late at night, and then the House Democrats tried to call for a vote on this amendment on the House floor. And actually, they had a bipartisan coalition. I don't know how many Republicans they had, but enough that it was a bipartisan group calling for a vote on this amendment on the floor. And the House Republican leadership would not allow a vote. Not allow a vote.
We've done that to them from time to time.
Not allow a vote. Thus, it has gone from the House to a conference committee with the Senate, with the House version including this religious liberty mandate and the Senate version not. So now we wait to see what comes out of the conference committee. But meanwhile, 42 senators have signed a letter to the leadership saying we don't want this on the bill. And if they stand firm, that they can prevent the bill from being passed in the Senate. And Obama has threatened to veto the bill. But frankly, all those promises, given that this is a defense authorization bill, don't necessarily give me comfort.
But you could change the Congress with your vote on November 8th, or if you're a Trump supporter, November 28th, which is when he
Please.
told you to vote.
Yeah. All right, should we move on to presidential
Well,
politics?
it does seem like a long time ago because when right after we taped, they had the debate last week, and let's go over what happened there.
Okay.
Secretary Clinton made a brief mention of marriage equality. She also stood up for Planned Parenthood and abortion access rather strongly. Trump
All
said,
in the context of this Supreme Court question.
Trump said the Clinton Foundation took money from countries that throw gay people off buildings.
neglecting to mention
Which
that
is
he
not-
does business with all those countries.
Well, it's also not true in the sense that,
Well, it's
ISIS,
outlawed.
ISIS that does this.
Yeah, but homosexuality is outlawed. And how many weeks do we sit here week after week after week talking about people being arrested in Saudi Arabia and prosecuted?
Yes, and we're going to show you something about that when we talk about these ads.
I do want to say one thing about the Supreme Court question, because this comes up time and again with these candidates, and it's always phrased as, do you believe with Scalia in an originalist position, or do you believe in this living Constitution?
Yeah.
Which I think is a phony construct, because to me, the originalists should understand that the Constitution as written, with its amendments with the Equal Protection Clause, for instance, is a document that is meant to be used in its principles for all current situations.
Yes, it was written in the 18th century when they didn't have television, for instance, but they were able to make rulings about television and things like that based on the principles that are laid down in the Constitution.
I like to say airplanes. You know, if we're going by the original words, how do you make decisions about airplanes?
Exactly.
So I don't buy into this thing of originalist versus living document. It's
Right.
You go by the core principles of the Constitution, which the conservatives refuse to do.
Well,
I also was glad there was no handshake. All this business about the handshake. You don't have to shake someone's hand.
especially given where Trump's hands have been.
I have refused to shake the hand of someone who had just spent an hour excoriating gay people
Yes.
in a debate with me on television.
Yeah, I did that on a...
He comes over, wants to shake my hand. I said, are you kidding?
I did that on a radio show once, and we were all supposed to be pals, right? It's ridiculous. I mean, the guy had just railed against same-sex marriage, and at the end of it, he goes like this. I said, you just said I shouldn't have equal rights, and you want me to shake your hand. Mm-hmm. Did you see us shaking hands on this show?
And we're not germaphobes. We just don't feel it's necessary.
Trump is a germaphobe. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah.
I like to wash my hands when I get home after I've been on the subway holding the railing and all
All
that
right,
stuff.
should we show the ads?
Yes. Well, the first one we have here is a Hillary Clinton ad about how equality is about changing hearts and minds.
Wait, is that...
That's the first one I have.
No,
you wanna-
Lenny and Pearl.
Oh, you want to go with Lenny and Pearl first?
Yeah.
You want to go with that first?
That's first on our list.
Let's go with it.
Lenny and Pearl.
I'm Lenny, and
I'm Pearl.
been together for 50 years. We just do. We are in love, and we tell each other that every day. Pearl and I were involved in the major marriage case in North Carolina. I wanted, when we got married, that we would do it
In our own...
in our community. Fast forward to the day when we became legal in North Carolina. It's just amazing. I can't believe it. You know, we are so lucky. We have a lot to worry about in terms of this election.
Who am I voting for? Why would you even ask?
It's well past time for America to have a woman president. And so every single vote counts. Oh, I am voting for Hillary Clinton, no question about it.
92th birthday coming up. If Hillary is sitting in the White House, I shall be very happy.
Yeah, that's an HRC-produced ad for Hillary
Yes.
with a lovely older couple.
Right.
And the next ad is the other Hillary ad you were putting out. This is done by a group called Future 45.
No. Future 45 is the Trump thing.
Oh, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, so the next one is the...
Hillary Clinton, equality is about changing hearts and minds. It's 30 seconds.
Okay.
Equality is, of course, about passing laws, but it also is changing hearts and minds. We need to build an America where no one has to worry they can get married on Saturday and be fired on Monday, where kids aren't bullied just because of who they are, and where every American has the chance to live up to his or her God-given potential, no matter who they are or who they love.
It's very bold. It even shows kissing.
Look, it's a very overt plea for our vote. We are a very important constituency in this election. We have, as you've often pointed out, one of the highest turnout rates for progressive
Yes, but it's also
candidates.
true. It's also true that saying you're for LGBT rights is a way to show that you're progressive.
Yes.
Even though on many issues you may not be.
Well, it's a way to reach out, too, to the millennials who are so adamant
Yes.
on our behalf.
When candidates mention LGBT rights at their rallies, you see this huge upswell from the kids,
Yes.
screaming
Yeah.
whenever
Biggest
they mention
applause
that.
line.
Yes, it is. So they recognize that.
And Tim Kaine, I think, has watched every presidential debate with an HRC LGBT audience in one city or another.
Right.
I think the last one he was in North Carolina watching with the Equality North Carolina.
So they won our
folks.
vote, but the people supporting Trump also are, as Donald did in the debate, are trying to inject this issue of protecting LGBT lives from terrorists, basically, into their ads. And this group that you mentioned called Future 45, which is a super PAC, produced this 32-second ad called Human Rights.
Women not allowed to drive. Gays and lesbians punished by death. Female rape victims sent to prison for engaging in extramarital relations. Just some of the human rights abuses the Clintons ignored while their foundation raised millions of dollars from some of the most extreme foreign governments. How can we trust the Clintons to fight for us when they've sold out millions of women already? Future 45 is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Yes, Donald Trump may have molested a few women, but the Clintons want to kill thousands of women. Can't you tell? Well, my goodness.
Yeah, it's rich.
The right wing has been doing this for a long time. I can remember 20 years ago when the New York Post, which is totally against gay rights, would say, "Oh, but these regimes, which in the Middle East or wherever they were, but they want to kill gay people. What do you care? You don't even support gay rights at home."
Well, and what are you doing about those regimes? At least the Obama administration and State Department have been trying to make life better for people in those regimes.
And we should reiterate it again. We're just in as nonpartisan a way as we can. What Trump has promised to do if he is elected. He talked about the Supreme Court. He talked about having justices like Scalia, the most anti-LGBT judge on the court when he was there. And he's talking about judges who will repeal marriage equality, and some of them are in favor of reinstating the anti-sodomy laws in this country, which would just allow the states to make it a crime again, which would allow the states to ban same-sex marriage again. It wouldn't happen across the country, but it could happen federally as well if the federal government chooses to go that route.
We yearn to be able to report to you that all parties are supporting our issues.
Sure.
But we have to be realistic about who is and who isn't. Now, that Trump ad was paid for by, as you say, this Future 45 organization, funded basically by Sheldon Adelson
and Paul Singer.
And the Rickett Singer, too.
Paul
yes,
Singer
yes,
gave them
Elliott Management. Yeah.
Paul Singer gave them $250,000. Now, Paul Singer is a plutocrat, vulture capitalist who has a gay son and has given a lot of money to gay causes. But he's all about electing people like Trump, like people across the country in state legislatures who are going to let him do his business and who vote against LGBT rights all the time.
And the Ricketts family, who are the Cubs owners, and one of them is the governor of Nebraska, I think, or Kansas. Not Kansas,
Ted
that's
Olson.
Brownback. Nebraska. And they're very right-wing, except for Laura Ricketts, who is the out lesbian chair of LPAC, the Lesbian Political Action Committee. She's very, pro-Hillary and Democrats.
What is Thanksgiving dinner like at their house?
Well, whatever. Yeah, and we shouldn't leave out, as a viewer has mentioned to us, the third-party candidates, the Libertarian and Green Party candidates, and any others on the ballot. But frankly, they haven't been terribly, aside from not being successful, they have not been terribly outspoken on these issues. Right. The Libertarians describe themselves as socially progressive or inclusive, socially inclusive. But Gary Johnson doesn't want any non-discrimination laws. He wants free-for-all. He doesn't...
which is the true libertarian position.
Yes, it is the purest position.
It's not, they say, well, look, I don't hate gay people, but I think a business should be entitled to do what it wants to do. And if you don't like it, don't go there. Don't patronize them.
Well,
that is the libertarian view.
That would put him right in bed with Tim Gill.
Tim will love that.
Look, we really just want you to vote.
Yes.
Please, it's important. And I saw a guy.
Make the time.
Look, yesterday there
On
was a
election day.
guy interviewed on TV. I'm a big Trump supporter. I'm pro-Trump. I'm Trump all the way. So you're going to vote for Trump? Oh, no. I'm not going to vote. It's rigged. I'm not voting. Well, I'm fine with him not voting, but I really think people have to get out and vote. It's important.
Up and down the ballot.
Yeah. Yeah, and even if you don't think the presidential race is worth voting in, the U.S. Senate, the U.S. Congress, your local legislators, tremendously important to make a choice
the Human
there.
Rights Campaign just endorsed Jason Kander in Missouri for the U.S. Senate.
He's the one who put the gun together blindfolded.
Yes. I think they weren't supporting him before because they didn't think it was that viable or something.
Yes. No, he's viable now.
He's running against Roy Blunt, who's the very anti-LGBT incumbent there in Missouri.
Yeah.
So Blunt has a terrible record on our rights for a long time. Now, and then there's the Log Cabin Club. Now, you know, this is not a very large organization, I don't think. It's kind of a man bites dog story.
Yeah.
But you know, they were running around saying, oh, Donald Trump's the most pro-LGBTQ Republican nominee in history. They've been saying this for a long time. Well, I mean, I don't know on what basis, because why? Because he says LGBTQ once in a while and says we shouldn't be killed by ISIS. That's nice. But they have withheld their endorsement.
Look, it's like him saying he respects women more than anybody ever.
No. So they've withheld their endorsement from him, but they are...
it was a very close vote.
But they said, we do have a strong concern among our members about the Supreme Court means for other issues, like the Second Amendment. They care more about gun rights than they do about gay rights.
Also, while their board, on a very close vote, refused to endorse Trump, the state chapters wanted them to endorse Trump.
Yeah. And
they overruled them.
And they are pushing for a Republican Congress where we can get nothing through. I read in their press release that President Reagan inspired their founding in '77. President Reagan, the architect of the AIDS crisis, for God's sakes.
Again, it's a libertarian point of view. Also, there are complaints, of course, from the Trump team that we never pay attention to their issues, only his off-the-wall statements. In the speech at Gettysburg over the weekend, where he again promised to sue the women who have accused him, don't hold your breath for that, he did lay out his first 100 days agenda, and it included appointments to the Supreme Court that will take away all our rights, and also that he would repeal all the Obama executive orders, which is all the non-discrimination orders for contractors and everything,
Yes.
transgender guidelines and all of that.
I mean, let me be clear. I am not against making America great again. I just have a little different view of how it ought to happen.
Exactly.
Right.
And so does Eleazar Andres, who was hired by a Trump golf club in New Jersey, in Pine Hills, New Jersey, hired as a maintenance worker 2 years ago. And he's an out gay man, and he was perfectly open about that. Well, his fellow employees there at the Trump golf course started harassing him, gay bashing him, throwing rocks and golf balls at him to the extent that he ended up in the hospital. He complained to his supervisor, who said, oh yeah, I'll take care of that, fired him. And Eleazar is now suing.
Well, the Trump Organization has received a 0 on HRC's Corporate Equality Index, the lowest possible score.
On the off chance that Hillary Clinton is elected president and you would like to be hired by her administration, the Victory Fund, the LGBT organization that promotes LGBT candidates for office, is assembling resumes. They did this for the Obama administration too, and a lot of people got hired. So if you are interested in submitting yourself for hiring by, I guess they would give those resumes to the Trump administration too. So no matter who gets elected, if you would like to submit yourself for a job in an administration, you can send your resume to victoryinstitute.org/PAI, Presidential Appointments Initiative, PAI. victoryinstitute.org, and they'll take a look at your resume.
Well, Trump has said that he's going to do his hiring as a reality show. No, it's not true. All right, shall we move on?
Yes.
Okay, some other things that are going on around the country. In New Jersey, the suit alleging that a Catholic school gay marriage, they fired somebody for working in a Catholic school and getting gay married, is going to go forward. The judge has rejected the school's request to reconsider the dismissal of the lawsuit. This is the Drumgoole case, Kate Drumgoole, and it's going forward in Paramus.
In Utah, Equality Utah and the National Center for Lesbian Rights are suing to overturn curriculum laws in the state that forbid the discussion of homosexuality in the schools.
Now, there are 7 other states that do this too: Alabama, Arizona, Louisiana, Mississippi, Oklahoma, South Carolina, and Texas.
Now, we're talking about history lessons, sex ed classes.
You're not allowed to show the Gay USA show there.
You can't, not in the school.
Why not?
It forbids teaching about same-sex marriage. It enforces teaching that sex is only legitimate inside heterosexual marriage.
These are public schools.
Yes, so they're filing suit to challenge these laws.
And the Salt Lake Tribune is on board in supporting this suit.
Yeah.
Which is nice. A federal judge in Texas has doubled down on transgender discrimination. This is Judge Reed O'Connor. He recently blocked the Department of Justice from enforcing the guidance that clarifies transgender students have a right to be free from discrimination. And he denied a request to limit his injunction to the 13 states that brought suit against the administration.
He's going nowhere.
Well,
we're going to win an appeal there.
Burning some, okay.
In Florida, the Department of Children and Families is implementing non-discrimination rules on sexual orientation and gender identity for foster kids in group homes.
Okay, and in Los Angeles, transgender activists and allies held a press conference. They want to stop the LAPD from targeting the transgender community. You could do this in every community in the country, basically, but they are trying to stop these sweeps of people who are arrested for walking while being transgender.
They also are asking for social services for these trans sex workers and decriminalization of sex work. In Florida, Planned Parenthood of Southwest and Central Florida has announced expanded services in 11 regional health centers for trans people who often have trouble getting served appropriately in various doctors' offices and health clinics around the country. I hear regularly from one of our viewers about exactly those problems.
I want to talk about a case in New York, which should be of interest to all of you, about the preparation of your end-of-life kind of stuff. A guy named Bill Cornwell died. He left his townhouse to Tom Doyle, his partner of 50 years. But when they did a will, in New York, you need 2 witnesses. And they only got 1 witness, and therefore it is an invalid will.
I think that's malpractice by whatever lawyer they were working with.
Or they just did it themselves or something. I mean, you can do your own will, but you got to do it right. It's got to have 2 witnesses, and they've got to be 2 people, in New York at least, who are not named in the will.
Right.
You sign, and then do it in front of a notary public, and you've got a will. Get a will if you're over 18 years old. All right. So they didn't do this. And also, they didn't get married. They had plenty of opportunity to get married.
One of them was sick, and they really didn't feel like they could get to City Hall.
Well,
and they thought, we have a will.
They were, yes, and they were confused about that, and therefore, right. So the the estate, which is a $7 million townhouse that the guy was living in, I mean, they'd lived there for 50 years, it probably cost nothing 50 years ago, passes to the nieces and nephews who are the next of kin of this guy. Now, one of the nephews or something was willing to let the guy stay there until he died and maybe give him a few bucks, but the rest of them aren't. So it's now being contested in court. Now, the lawyer for this survivor says, well, you know, they did travel to Philadelphia once to buy a dog, and that means that they're common law married because Pennsylvania has common law marriage, even though New York doesn't. I don't think that's going to work.
I'd be very surprised if they get away with that in court.
I hope this was written up big time, big league, as Trump would say, in the Times. So, I hope that they, you know, can work something out with the nieces and nephews, but I also hope that everybody out there takes care of your partners, your end-of-life stuff, protects yourself.
Please.
And your property.
All right.
Otherwise, it does go to your next of kin, even if you don't like them.
Smaller story from New York. Governor Cuomo, always desperate for political advantage, has announced an LGBT memorial commission in the wake of the Orlando massacre.
They announced this. The submissions are due on November 21st, so I wonder if it's wired. And he's appointed basically his LGBT allies to a commission that's going to decide
So
this.
they're supposed to put together a plan for a memorial to the fight for equal rights and all victims of hate, intolerance, and violence. How are you going to do that? How are you going to do a memorial for the fight for LGBT rights and all victims of violence, hate, and discrimination? You have 1 month to submit something, and you have a budget of $800,000. I think a nice little garden would be about the most you could do.
I think that's what they should have done at the World Trade Center when it was knocked down. I think they should have grassed it over and made it a quiet place of contemplation.
Well, they had competition with various ideas for that, and my favorite was the one where they had a pasture with cows grazing.
Well, something nice like that other than what we've got.
In Massachusetts, they have arrested 2 men for blowing up the LGBT newspaper box. They're young guys from New Hampshire, ages 23 and 20. They are the alleged perpetrators.
Rainbow Times news box.
In Georgia, there's a lay minister who came from California and got hired by the Department of Public Health in Georgia, but his job offer has been rescinded because they found out he was a very right-wing anti-LGBT type. And he is now upset because he said they demanded his sermons, and they're doing it on the basis of his speaking and writing and not on the basis of his actions, which I do think is dicey. But he was running the Pasadena Department of Public Health. When Dustin Lance Black was canceled as a commencement speaker at a college there, he was the substitute speaker, but then they uncovered all this stuff about him there. He got disinvited from that. Lance Black was invited again. Now he's going to Georgia. It's a mess.
All right.
But I don't think, give people jobs or take them away on the basis of their actions in the jobs.
Right.
Right?
Yes,
Okay.
I agree. They can't pass an LGBT rights law in Pennsylvania, but Philadelphia is going to receive $3 million from the Pennsylvania's Redevelopment Assistance Capital Program to build 30 affordable one-bedroom units for the city's LGBTQ residents who are homeless or at risk.
In addition to the senior LGBT low-income housing they've already built.
Yes.
Okay.
What else have we got here? Oh, and we mourn the loss of Tom Hayden. We have a picture of him there, the famous civil rights activist, and he was also
Peace activist.
Peace activist. Was a state legislator for a long, long time. A real pioneer in all those things. He did things like the recruitment of insisting in legislation. Recruitment of gay and racial minorities in AIDS research at universities, extension of sexual harassment codes to professional relationships, the prohibitions on date rape drugs. I mean, he was an LGBT rights supporter, but he was quite the radical and paid for it.
Well, Chicago 7.
Yes.
But I was certainly around at that time, and those people were heroes, and it would be nice to have more radical heroes like
Only
that
76.
these days. Yeah.
Enjoy it while we can.
Okay.
All right.
International news?
Well, in Dhaka, in Bangladesh, the police have arrested the main suspect in the murders of the gay magazine editor who was the leading gay activist there, and a secular blogger who was brutally killed by militants there. When these people were killed, their friends said they're never going to do anything about this, but they did arrest somebody. I hope they've got the right person.
Again, yes, alleged perpetrator. In Britain, something that shouldn't be controversial and that is the British government's move to pardon 65,000 men convicted of vice, gay sex.
15,000 of them are still alive.
Yes. Now, the problem is...
They didn't have a law against women doing it.
But women were arrested for vice, and they are not included in this pardon offer.
No good.
By women, we mean lesbians. So I'm not happy about that part of it. The other thing is the LGBT community and activists don't want, they want a blanket pardon. This is not that. It still requires those who are alive to go and apply individually for these pardons, because the government does not want to pardon people who were arrested in public restrooms, because that is still against the law.
What
public
do you mean?
Sex.
They named one of the restrooms in London for Joe Orton, where he used to go to cruise. The playwright.
Hypocrisy is alive and well. But there are all sorts of conditions on this that people are not happy about, and there are people who are saying, I don't want a pardon, I want an apology.
Well, George Montague said that. He's called the oldest gay man in the village. And he said, I didn't do anything wrong, so I don't need a pardon, I need an apology.
There was a member of parliament who proposed an alternate law that would have been a blanket pardon, and the government blocked that. And
they filibustered it.
Yeah, and defeated it.
Yes.
So they want their halfway measure.
Now, in Northern Ireland, those Christian bakers who refused to make a cake that supported same-sex marriage have lost their appeal. And the court said that they had directly discriminated against this guy on the grounds of sexual orientation by refusing to make a cake supporting same-sex marriage. They said that just because you make a cake with a message on it doesn't mean you're endorsing the message. If you make a cake for Halloween, doesn't mean that you support that, or witches and things like that. But we actually are of the view that if the cake has a message, that you would be like a printer entitled to say, well, I don't want to print something like that. As opposed to just on the basis of sexual orientation.
Well, the problem is, but what is a message?
Yeah.
You know, where do you draw the line? And why can't the baker say, a cake celebrating a same-sex wedding is a message?
If you're making a cake, if you make wedding cakes and you sell them to non-gay people, then you need to provide them for gay people.
Well, we're back to public accommodations,
there
which is...
That's the difference there.
Yeah.
It may be subtle to us. I think Peter Tatchell has actually supported the bakers in this case.
One of the
But they lost.
shameful things going on in the U.S. at the moment is this fight over the Defense Department trying to get money back from people who volunteered for service and were given bonuses for that and are now being charged. But the Defense Department has done something right in Germany, where at Ramstein Intermediate School at Ramstein Air Force Base, I think it's an Air Force Base, the children of service members, U.S. service members, go to school in schools on military bases all over the world. So this one kid was going to school there, fifth grader, and it's a fifth grade trans girl. And the supervisor of the school said, oh no, we're not letting her use the girls' bathroom next to her classroom. She has to go down 3 flights of stairs and across the courtyard to use a bathroom there or use the boys' room. And this freaked out the girl, freaked out her parents. They had a big fight. The other school personnel and the kids were fine with her using the girls' room. And so the Defense Department stepped in. Defense Secretary Ashton Carter is fixing this problem and is fixing it for all 191 schools on military bases around the world, and saying that trans kids have a right to use the bathrooms that correspond with their lived gender identity.
Well, in England, there's this case that we learned of this week, and we don't have a lot of details about it because a lot of the court records are sealed. But a mother had a child who was born a boy and wanted to live as a girl and was letting the child live as a girl. And the father didn't like, they were separated, and the father didn't like this. And the judge said, oh, no. I've looked at this, and, you know, he is really interested in boys' things like military toys and things like this, and gave custody to the father over this thing. Now, we don't, again, have a lot of details about this, but this judge sounds obviously prejudiced.
All right, let's whip through a few things here. Gibraltar has just okayed same-sex marriage, although it does include a religious opt-out for clerks, but any clerk who opts out has to be replaced by the government with someone who will issue the license or do the ceremony.
Australia has its first Aboriginal out gay member of the legislature there.
The Northern Territory Legislature.
Right. His name is Chancey, Paech. I won't try to pronounce that.
There he is in the blue suit, surrounded by some of his colleagues.
I am young, I am gay, I am black, a true blue Territorian.
And the right wing tried to stop his election and was campaigning against him in rural areas by telling Aboriginal constituents that he was gay. And he went out to campaign, and the constituents said to him, we don't care, we just want houses.
He got 60% of the vote.
In Taiwan, legislators have proposed a same-sex marriage bill and adoption rights and administrative changes for LGBT non-discrimination. They're having their big Pride March this Saturday. We're just waiting for word from the president about what she thinks of this.
Singapore is trying to stop foreign businesses from sponsoring events in the city, and that includes Google, unless they sign on to something and Google says they will do that to get a new license to do it.
New rules requiring permits. They were trying to stop the annual Pink Dot LGBT celebration.
Because that dot just keeps getting bigger and bigger.
And homosexuality is still outlawed in Singapore. Yeah. But Google is the first corporation to step forward and saying, we're going to apply for the permit. We want to keep sponsoring this.
Okay. Did we do the Czech Constitutional
No,
Court? They've overturned a law that banned individual gays and lesbians living in a registered partnership from adopting children.
And in also in Australia, a liberal member of Parliament, which is the ruling government, wants Parliament to vote on marriage. This is breaking with the ruling party.
And how many people in the world support same-sex marriage?
I forgot.
1 in 3, according to a new survey in the world.
In Ukraine, right-wing thugs in masks and rubber gloves violently attacked and disrupted an LGBT film screening of the documentary This Is Gay Propaganda, which challenges the no promo homo laws.
New push for same-sex marriage in Taiwan. We
just did that.
And
at the International Lesbian and Gay 20th Anniversary Conference, they said Europe has made a lot of progress, but now there's a backlash.
Yes.
More hate speech, more scapegoating, more attacks.
It's everywhere. We're going through a hard time here, too.
In Indonesia, the president condemned discrimination against LGBT, but said Islam does not allow it, and the court there is deciding whether to ban all sex outside marriage.
Good luck with that.
And as a segue to AIDS news, Norway is going to provide free Truvada as pre-exposure prophylaxis for those at risk.
AIDS news. The CDC is reporting the number of cases of STIs in the United States reached an all-time, they say an all-time high last year. I think it's a new high after it went down over AIDS. I can't believe it's an all-time high. But anyway.
Syphilis way up in young men having sex with men.
Chlamydia, gonorrhea, 19% for syphilis. Yeah.
And they blame some of this on budget cuts to STD clinics and to dating apps, which have brought people together for sex more frequently.
But they're saying, there's an assumption that because a lot of gay men are using PrEP, they're not using condoms and therefore getting more STIs, and there is some rise there, but they're saying that this huge increase is not attributable to that.
Well, they say the rates are rising because prevention systems have eroded, whether that is testing and treatment, these clinics being shut down for lack of funding, all of that is contributing to the rise. It is real. The rise in sexually transmitted infections is rising.
Condoms?
It is something to be concerned about.
Safe sex, mutual masturbation, all those kinds of things.
Which leads us to entertainment news.
Well, let's start off with Dallas Steele. We have a picture of him. This guy is a former Fox and CBS anchor, local. Jim Walker. His name was Jim Walker. He quit a 23-year TV news business to become a gay porn star and a sex worker. He said, I didn't like the continuous BS that management put you through and the constant pressure to sensationalize and exaggerate what was really true just to boost ratings.
That's why I left CBS 30 years ago.
But you didn't go into sex work.
Not yet.
But he said he has interviewed every still living U.S. president, and his previous work experience sets him apart from his gay porn colleagues.
Okay.
Dallas Steele of Titan Men.
Following up on our interview with Terrell Alvin McCraney last week, the writer of the story that's the basis for Moonlight. Moonlight's getting rave reviews everywhere.
Yes.
And I just want to let people know that it is opening nationwide on November 11th. Highly recommended.
Yep, Moonlight.
Gaytravel.com has recommended the Royal Caribbean Cruise Line as their first approved cruise line. They say that they are making an affirmative effort to accommodate and entertain LGBT travelers.
I saw the Cherry Orchard at the Roundabout Theater, and they gave a new version to Stephen Karam, who wrote The Humans, which won the Tony last year. Mm-hmm. And they got a great director, Simon Godwin, who did great work with Man and Superman with Ralph Fiennes at the National Theater last year. This thing is a mess, but the guy in the dark suit there is Joel Grey, who plays the 80-year-old butler, and he's terrific in it. If everybody had taken a cue from Joel, you'd have a good show. When you do a comedy, don't do all that mugging, please.
Now, I feel required to keep you up on the developments on the Masters of Sex show on Showtime because of our previous discussions. Well, Beau Bridges is back, the formerly closeted doctor who's now out and semi-proud. And he got upset because they had a male-female couple they were working with, but the guy had clearly had some previous sexual encounters with men. He had admitted to one or two of them. And
he's an admitted homosexual.
Yes, well, semi.
That's what they used to call us.
Beau Bridges got upset. He said, "You're trying to convert him to heterosexuality by working with him and trying to fix his relationship with his wife." And they said, "Oh, no, we would never do that. Never."
Well, of course, they became famous for it late in life.
Yes, they did. So
they became quite hateful about it.
I think this is a big cover-up on the show.
I think that they were losing their relevance in the sex field, and they wanted to get some headlines again, and that's how they chose to get it.
And then Michael Sheen, as Masters, gives this big speech about, we're going to study homosexuals just like we study heterosexuals. They have the same issues and the same impulses.
Well, Kinsey had done that long before them.
Well, they had some guy, they've got a new worker in their clinic who had worked at the Kinsey Institute, and he's brought a broader perspective to the work of Masters and Johnson.
I just want to say I appreciate how Ann Northrup sacrifices for us so that we can know these things.
It's just my endless curiosity.
All right, let's talk about some things we saw at the
New
Fest, which is the LGBT film festival in New York. It opened with a movie called The Pass, with Russell Tovey there as he's on the left, playing basically a David Beckham-like character who is repressing his sexuality.
Not in this shot, he's not.
It takes him over 3 different periods of his life. I saw the play in London. They keep it sort of closeted in these hotel rooms, which get increasingly luxurious as his career progresses.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, it's about the price of repression. And not exactly a feel-good movie, but very well done.
I wasn't as enthralled, but maybe for obvious reasons. I thought it was okay.
It was a terrific performance.
I didn't walk out.
No.
I just thought it was a little predictable.
And they ended the festival with Love Song, which is you know, it's sort of a lesbian. It looks kind of lesbianic there, but these are 2 women friends who are with men in their lives, and I'm not going to tell you how it ends or anything, but I thought it was a little bit of an odd choice, but it's a very beautifully made film.
Okay, that's sort of damning with faint praise.
There you go.
Well, I saw 2 movies at the festival, aside from The Pass. I didn't see Love Song. That I thought were absolutely terrific, and I hope you get a chance to see them at film festivals in your area, or I hope on TV or in some release.
Eventually, they stream these things.
Yes, or they show up on HBO or something.
Yeah.
The first is Suicide Kale. There's a title. You probably don't remember the movie Go Fish 20 years
sure,
ago.
Of course.
Yeah. The little lesbian community in Chicago, very funky and local and totally charming. This is sort of an updated version. It's 2 lesbian couples, one a married established couple, and the ones you saw in that picture, a new couple. And they are having lunch with each other, and it is a hilarious comedy that has one of the best scripts I've seen anywhere for anything in a long time.
Suicide Kale.
Suicide Kale, and beautifully acted, really funny, really keep an eye out for Suicide Kale. And the other one I saw was Plaza de la Soledad.
What's going on there?
These are, well, they are a couple, but they are sex workers in Mexico in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. And again, it's very local and you know, funny and charming and sad in the end, because these are very poor women, but you really get to know them and get to know their life. And Plaza de la Soledad, a very compelling movie. I really appreciated it. And I want to alert everybody to the fact that another old fundamental lesbian movie, Watermelon Women, is going to play at the Metrograph on the Lower East Side in New York starting November 10th. It's the old Cheryl Dunye movie.
Isn't Sarah
Very
Schulman
good.
in that?
Maybe. I have to watch it again. It's really good and really worth seeing. Watermelon Women.
Thanks for watching us, and if you'd like to be on our email list, go to gayusatv.org. Thank you for being with us, and have a happy Halloween.
See you next week.